Hello, everybody. My name is Asher, your host for the Revenue Journey podcast, where we interview and grab unique perspectives from amazing individuals doing technology sales within the APAC and ASEAN region. Now, the BDR or SDR role, or the sales development or business development role, is typically how we start our career in tech sales. We learn the importance of prospecting and we build our foundation in sales in this role. Now, while there are perks of remaining as a BDR or SDR, many may want to move on to an account executive or AE role, where closing deals and revenue is their new KPI. However, many may find themselves stuck in the BDR or SDR role, either because they have no opportunity in their current organization, or because other organizations may not be willing to give them a shot as an AE without prior relevant experience. In this episode, we have Shawn Goh, who started his tech sales career as an Enterprise SDR in Workday, but subsequently became an Enterprise AE in his next role. He shares his journey and the things he did during his time as an SDR that got him the opportunity to jump into an AE role immediately. So with that being said, let's get this episode started. All right, hello Shawn. Welcome to the Revenue Journey podcast. And of course, with every guest that comes on this show, I want to hear from them. Firstly, for you especially, actually right now, you just moved from Singapore to Australia. So I want to know how's Australia treating you and how you're feeling at this moment.
Thanks, Asher, for having me. So Australia is amazing. For one, I posted on LinkedIn, and it's really true. I became a coffee addict. I'm not a fan of coffee, to be honest. Back in Singapore, I don't really drink coffee, not even the kopiyo or whatever kopi, right? I came here, I drink coffee almost every other day. So the culture is treating me well. The weather is good, unpredictable, but good. As compared to the hot weather in Singapore, I get to experience 4 seasons in one day. So that's good for me. So overall, loving it here. Yeah, so far.
Yeah, and of course, for our listeners who may not have the context, so Shawn was previously working in Singapore and we can talk about where you were from before that, right? But you had the opportunity to go into Australia to work. So I think that's something interesting that I just thought of sharing with everybody who is listening in. But yeah, Shawn, let's start off maybe by understanding more about your current role now. Of course, you are still in sales, still an AE. So let's find out more about that so our listeners have more context. Maybe start off by telling us what kind of solution or service you're currently selling.
Yeah, that's a good question to start off with. So I'm in the HR tech space, specifically in the employee experience side of things. So it's an employee experience solution. And for me, I cover the SMB market, SMB segment in the APAC market. So companies anywhere below 200 employees, and I focus on HR professionals. And being SMB, I focus a lot and I speak a lot to business owners, founders, CEOs, COOs themselves. Yeah, so that's what I do right now.
Understand. And are there any types of specific industries or verticals that you sell to, or this is just throughout any industry?
Yeah, it's throughout. So every company has employees. Every company wants productive, engaged employees. So there is no sweet spot, unlike a lot of solutions that I used to be in. So I'm happy to sell to all verticals and industries right now. Yeah.
Nice. And I think that's one of the benefits of being SMB, right? Sometimes you can cater to probably a larger audience. And maybe the last question is, you mentioned APAC. Is there any particular countries you are focusing more on, or this is really just a whole of APAC, including ANZ, ASEAN, or is there a focus that you have?
So it's really all of APAC. But for me, being a Singaporean, moving to Melbourne, there is that focus in Singapore at the end of the day. And that's the reason why I came to Australia, because in terms of people and culture, Australia, definitely it's a very matured market in that. So I cover the Australia market right now to speak to companies about that, learning from the experience. So yes, I cover whole of APAC, a lot of Australian companies, but if you want to talk about a certain country in specific, I would say Singapore, definitely my home ground. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, maybe somewhere in the podcast we can even talk about the differences in terms of culture and how you sell to an Australian versus like a Singapore. But
sure.
Of course, yeah. And of course, before we go there, Shawn, I just want to give again more context or more backstory to our audience. So Shawn, I've known you for a very, very long time. We go way back.
Too long.
Yeah, too long. Yeah, I mean, okay, so correct me if I'm wrong. I think I knew you for quite some time, but the first time I really got to meet you and got to know you was just before I enlisted into the army. So it was kind of in the sales environment as well that we met each other. So I actually first met Shawn while working as a contract staff for this web development company. Wanted to earn some money as I had some free time before I went to the army. So it was essentially quite a traditional sales role. So it was literally going out to yellow pages, cold calling businesses. I have to tell you, I didn't really like that whole job back then because I was thinking this was sales. I didn't want to go back into sales. So was it actually also your first sales role, or you did something before that?
No, in fact, that was my first, in a way, a first full-time sales role. But when I was 17, 18, I started off as a telemarketer in an insurance company. Weird, right? Starting my part-time jobs as a telemarketer. I wanted to step out of my comfort zone. I'm a full-blown introvert. So I wanted to learn about communication skills, push myself out of my own comfort zone to learn that kind of human interactive skills, right? So it's really important. Thereafter, I went to where was I? I was part of a telco selling broadband and cable TV, doing door knockings. I would take a banner, right, and go to like Ang Mo Kio Market, Bukit Panjang Market to sell broadband services right there and then. I would say that's my first touch of sales. In regards to my first role, I actually started as a recruiter. And then for a few months, eventually had a very bad taste of that industry. It's just a company, it's not the industry, right? It's just the company itself. I left that, and that's where I met you, in that web development company.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I once have a guest, I talk to different people, and someone ever said to me, if you can sell those kind of very traditional door-to-door, selling traditional stuff, actually going into tech sales or SaaS sales it's not too out of a transition because you already have sort of that foundation in you in terms of a hunter role and all that. So I think that was really interesting. And you do have quite a background, right, in terms of your previous experience. So I think, as you mentioned, you did business development for that web development company. You had different experience in telemarketing before that. And talking about insurance, you actually even went on to AIA, to do marketing. You became a financial advisor for a period of time. And then that was when you decided, okay, let's go into tech sales. And then you started out as a BDR for Workday. So at this point, I have a question. What made you decide to make the transition in tech sales after, let's say, 5+ years or maybe even more in your career?
That's a really good question. Brings me back to why I made that decision. So we all know that tech is the next, or rather it's the big thing, right? It's essentially a future. I was really clear that B2C sales wasn't my kind of thing. I wanted to do B2B sales, which understands different nuances of a business model, how a business is being run, proper business strategies, right? So to understand processes that happens throughout an entire organization. So thus B2B sales was what I wanted to do. And tech, definitely, like what I said, it's the thing of the future. I wanted to jump into that. And back then, 5 years ago, people were talking about it. My friends were talking about it. And I decided, I should be joining the tech industry. And here I am, and never regret it at all.
Yeah, and it's definitely we also talk to a lot of people. And just to let you know, there are some listeners of this podcast that may be people from other industries or other roles, similar to you as well, maybe marketing or something. And they are thinking about going to tech sales. Some of them could be 5 years into their existing career, 6 years, 7 years. Recently, I even met someone who's a mother who made a transition into tech sales. So,
wow.
So you never know, whatever you share here may be interesting for some people. But yeah, I'm kind of curious, before I kind of go into the first question, digging into your role, right, in Workday. How was that whole interview process like in terms of, how was it like in terms of finding the opportunity and even going into Workday as a BDR, as your first tech sales job?
I was really shocked to even, I remember getting a call saying that I got in. I was really, really shocked about it. Because back then my thought is that barrier to entry being a BDR, it's really tough. And needless to say, it was Workday, right? So, but I remember throughout the whole interview process, the interviewer, which became my hiring manager, asked me a question: what is my strength? And I said that my strength came from my days in marketing and my early days in sales, which is to be creative. So that was my strength. And I guess that was something that she resonated in. And I remember her mentioning that creativity is so important to a BDR, finding different angles to find an opportunity to crack, a conversation opener from a 0 to a 1. That's really crucial. It's important to be creative about that. And of course, creativity is important at the end of the day for territory management, right? Crafting your contents, understanding what kind of email campaigns that you'll be running. So yeah, that was the interview process. And I guess that answer of my strength being creative resonated with her. And that's how I got my role, I believe, in Workday. Yeah.
I see. And actually, I think it makes a lot of sense, right? So I have my own fair share of prospecting into enterprise accounts. These people are very busy. They probably have 20 over emails a day asking for their time to look at this solution A, solution B. And yeah, being creative helps you to, I guess, essentially stand out, if that's the right word to use. And I mean, you started your tech sales career as an enterprise SDR, right, in Workday. And if I recall, it was mainly like the Singapore and Malaysia market. But one of the things is that, Workday sells to enterprises. So every month, I recall you said that you only have a limited number of total accounts to go into. So it's not like something you can just spray and pray and hopefully someone replies you. You got to be very strategic with your time and how you handle each of these accounts.
Exactly.
Tell us a little bit of that process, right? How was that whole prospecting process? What do you first think about when you know that, okay, these are the big companies I need to go into? So walk us through a little bit of your process.
Yeah, it's quite a process. I think firstly, number one is to have an alignment with your AE. As a BDR, remember that they are super important. You are that differentiator, whether an opportunity comes to pass for an AE to proceed to a close. So an SDR role and a BDR role, it's to me as important as an AE. So when you have that in mind, there is that collaboration between an AE and a BDR, understanding different tiers of accounts. What are the AE-focused accounts? What is a BDR-focused accounts? When that happens, I think it's important to also know customer stories within that solution that you're selling. So for me, I knew the sweet spot industries that I had to target. I cater my tiering of accounts based on sweet spot industries. I pull in customer stories, and that's how I crafted the messaging on why an organization should be speaking with me from this solution itself. So that was my thought process. So contents, industry, collaboration with my AE, really crucial.
Right. So you mentioned about first understanding what's the sweet spot. Is there a particular industry that this product strives in? But how was that hope? If I dive a little bit deeper, did you just read up on yourself, or did you go to different AEs, different SDRs just to ask a lot of questions? So again, because there are also people who are early in their tech sales career listening to this.
Yes.
So maybe give them a bit of insights into that.
That's a good one. So yes, speak to as many people as possible. Speak to AEs, of course. But speak to the ones that are doing outbound the most, which is essentially the SDRs. So I spoke to a lot of senior SDRs. They do outbounding day in, day out. That's what they do all day. So I spoke to them and asked them what exactly works. The main thing that I know is that you do not need to reinvent the wheel all the time. There are many good stuff that people are doing. You just need to know how to find them and ask the right questions to get to them. So what I did was that I collated different good campaigns, good contents from different SDRs, BDRs, and even AEs. Why is a certain deal closed? I mashed all of that together, to form a good campaign. And of course, so like what I said, information is everywhere. You just got to know where to find them and ask, other BDRs that are more senior and more tenure in the field to get more information from them. Yeah.
Right. So you basically leverage sort of your existing resources that you have.
Yeah.
And of course, at the same time, resources including even people and including campaigns, cadences.
Exactly.
Right. Interesting. And I recall one of the things you mentioned as well was that when you were enterprise SDR, again, because these are enterprise accounts, these are CHROs, CFOs of big multinational companies.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of the things you mentioned, I recall this very clearly, is that you are not just a one-man team. You work with different departments. For example, the partner team, marketing, to understand what's the events. And I think these are also the things that help you to hit your KPI, because an cold email alone is not enough. A cold cadence email is probably not enough. Also share with us a little bit about that. Like, how can someone who goes into enterprise account, how can they work with different departments to hit their KPI?
That's really good. So really, there are several ways, right? Being in enterprise sales itself, there is a lot of complexity in a certain account. Or rather, there are a lot of politics and power plays within different accounts, who reports to who has a better and stronger decision-making power. So the importance of that is to have coverage, multiple coverage and different touch points of different levels. So from the working level, the operations people, all the way to the decision makers, you got to cover them all, right? It's very important because you get information from every stage, managers, executives, staff, right? All the way to the ground staff. So that's number one. Number two, I had the privilege of working very closely with our partners back then. Something that a lot of SDRs don't have an opportunity to. So if you are an SDR, I encourage you to ask for that opportunity to work with the partners, because the partner ecosystem, the resellers, the distributors ecosystem, they are your extended arm. And it's a whole new ballgame because the way they function is really different. The way they are incentivized to sell for you, it's really different. So I had the privilege of leveraging on that extended arm to craft campaigns together, so that you add credential to what you're doing. Our partners out there, the neutral partners, the big partners, the small ones, come from a more neutral standpoint rather than you going out and doing cold calls from a very solution bias standpoint in our prospects perspective, right? So there needs to be neutrality in that conversation. I think another thing is also be best friends with the marketing. They're the ones that bring leads to you. Events are a great start as a call to action campaign. Lead your customers to events. They see the good stuff their solution is doing. Call them up, email them for a good conversation. So be always attuned to what events or what campaigns your marketing team is running. And for that to happen, always have consistent conversations with your marketing team. I believe they're doing amazing work, whichever company it is. So leverage on them, leverage on their knowledge, leverage on the events that they're running to bring in those leads. So I would say those are the different areas that I look at as an enterprise rep. And it has definitely helped me in terms of coverage. Yeah.
And two questions on coverage, right? So you mentioned talk to people of different levels. Of course, you have the top levels, the C-suite, the decision makers, people who can put a budget down to purchase something, or people who have influence power to influence a purchase. And when you say working with partners, trying your own approach, working in marketing, do you mean coverage across whole level? So maybe partners can bring you to a manager, for example, and maybe you yourself can try to go for a C-suite, or maybe partners can go to a C-suite for you and then you target a manager level. Is that what you're trying to say, or by coverage? So just want to get more nuggets from you.
Yeah. So there's no hard and fast rule to which partner covers who. In fact, it can be internal stakeholders. So you have in whichever company that you're in, the solution that you're selling, there are many very tenured people in your organization. Your VP, your president of Asia, the AEs that has been around for the longest time in the tech world, they have contacts into different organizations or customers or prospects that you're targeting, right? So I would go into LinkedIn to do maybe a contact mapping. So I say that this is the company I'm targeting. This is a manager within the company that knows one of my colleagues or knows one of my partners on LinkedIn. I will go to them and say, hey, do you know this person? Is it possible to reach out? You know, that kind of warm outreach. That's what I'll do. But I think there's no hard and fast rule who should, reach out to who. For me, I like to reach out to the working level and the decision makers themselves. The middle level are usually the people that I leverage on my partners on to connect with. I rather go straight to the decision makers to form a pitch, try to understand their main pain points of the business. The working level gives you the most information. They are the operational folks. They feel the most pain on the ground. And there's so many opportunities that I managed to create that were because of the operation people telling me their pains or ranting to me about their pains because I've been good friends with them. So it's very important for me, to be honest, to cover the working level, to give you information or arsenal bullets to bring back to your management and say, hey, this is what I've heard. Are these the pain points? Can you validate them? Can we have a chat because of that? So that's really how I do things. Yeah.
And I assume this also means you're going to have good alignment with your AEs, right? You got to tell them like, hey, we are playing a long game. I may not bring you the C-suite straight away, but I can bring you some people who have pain points, something like that.
Yeah, pertaining to enterprise is always a long game. But yes, I agree. At all times, have alignment to with your AEs. Allow them to know what exactly are you doing, just in case there is a cross communication to the same person in the company. Then it wouldn't look good, right? In terms of alignment perspective. So so always collaborate and communicate what you're doing with your AEs so that they understand. And you can even advise, if there's something that you can do better. Yeah. So always communicate. Yeah.
Nice. And of course, I said I have a second question, which is, and I want to get your perspective on this, right? So you talk about working with different departments, partners, marketing mainly. This is something I feel, and I'm not sure if you feel the same way, something that's unique to, let's say, the APAC market, particularly ASEAN, for example, Singapore, Malaysia, is very partner-led, or rather partner has a lot of influence over how things move, how they help your sales. And this may be a little bit different as compared to, let's say, the US, for example, where it's a lot more direct BDR, SDR. Would you agree that this is something more unique to ASEAN, and in order to really close some enterprise deal, you need to have that whole ecosystem of like partners and marketing to do your top of the funnel awareness, things like that?
I would agree to a certain extent, definitely. In fact, the past three roles that I've been in, there were partners involved every step of the way. Like what I said, most of the solutions that are in APAC region are either came from the US, they came from not ASEAN, right? And then they form a presence in ASEAN as a whole. So with that being said, there are definitely partners that have been around, local partners, or rather more well-known partners that has been around for a much longer time, and therefore a credibility has been formed. So I do agree, definitely to a certain extent, that it's a more partner-centric environment, especially for the ASEAN region, and that's why it's important, right, to know how to work with partners, to collaborate with them, what makes them tick, and what is the best way exactly to work in that partner ecosystem. Yeah, so I had the privilege, thankfully, to have that experience in the past three roles I've been in. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this definitely means also, I would say, good management, good leadership. They kind of know the go-to-market strategy for this region. Of course, I think it can be easy sometimes for companies coming here to just copy-paste whatever they do in the US, just copy straight to APAC. But I mean, after talking to quite a few people, I realized that doesn't really work most of the time. Can't just copy.
Exactly. Like that. Exactly. It's different. I mean, Singapore, it's different from the US, different from Australia. In fact, Singapore is different from Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia. Different kind of nuances and the way that we work in a more hierarchical environment rather than what we experience in the US. So content as well has to be localized for people to digest and that kind of stuff. So yes, very different market.
Definitely agree on that. And maybe since you spoke about, you work with a lot of different departments, I think if I recall correctly, you also mentioned that you had some opportunities back then because, again, you had so many relationships with the partners, for example. You had some opportunity to actually even close some deals for, let's say, your AE, just to get the experience. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. And then after Workday, you actually went on to companies like Splunk and Liferay, where you became an enterprise AE. So it's really from an enterprise SDR to enterprise AE, which is very uncommon because people typically go like SMB AE first, mid-market AE. I mean, tell me, what were some of the things that you did, or maybe what are some opportunities you had that kind of allowed you to head in that direction straight away?
Yeah, so when I left Workday, I wanted to become a full-fledged AE, and that's where I landed up in Liferay, right? So the reason why, from what I understand, is why I got that role, it's because of my partner experience. So I dealt with partner back in my time at Workday, even as a BDR. And as you said rightly, there is that partner-centric approach to a lot of SaaS companies, especially in Singapore, in ASEAN region. So that experience was crucial for me in landing that role in LifeRay. When I moved to Splunk, the reason why I moved to Splunk was because my mentor was there. My mentor back in Workday was there. And I would say it's really who you know, not only what you know. So it's important to build relationships. And of course, that certain level of trust between individuals, between yourself and your mentor, it's crucial. So my mentor was the one that actually brought me to Splunk. I went through the interview. And similarly, right, it's my partner experience that actually got me that role. So I'm really thankful that opportunities came. I wouldn't say that it's because I did super well as a BDR. That is important, right? But I think what's more important is that opportunities came because of mentorship. And of course, that partner experience, which was so crucial. So actually, like what I shared with you, right, that have exposure to partners wouldn't hurt. It will probably bring you somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned that to me before. Now that you say it, was that partner experience, or rather, to put it simply, it was experience that a normal SDR wouldn't have, but an AE would have. And that kind of helped you to bridge that gap towards an enterprise AE, which again is still amazing.
Yeah. So to me, that's that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we're kind of coming to kind of that last thing. And this is where I want to also understand your thought process and what you are thinking is that you did enterprise SDR at Workday first, enterprise AE at LifeRay and Splunk. And then of course you went to Australia. And I recall when I was speaking to you about you looking for a role in Australia, you mentioned that instead of an enterprise AE, which you already are, you wanted to look for something more SMB and mid-market kind of role. So essentially, that means a certain level of pay cut. Maybe some people will even argue a certain level of role cut where you are doing something lesser than what you did before. Some people may even think of it as a step back in your career. Share with us why you decided to do that. We'd really love to find out that thought process.
Yeah, I think for one, an AE is an AE, regardless of SMB or enterprise. It's really just different skill sets and customers that we're speaking with. So an enterprise AE, definitely there's a lot of complexity. But being an SMB AE now, it's about velocity. So I felt that I needed to grow in that space. So eventually, right, I do want to be a mentor or specifically a people leader. For me to be a people leader, I need to have experience of different regions, and that's the reason why I moved to Australia, because I didn't have that A and Z experience. Got to catch them all, got to clear the entire APAC region. So I was missing that, and that's why I came to Australia to have that to further qualify myself as a people leader in the future. So I did enterprise. Now I'm doing SMB. It also adds to that fact of me having more experience on the ground, so that regardless of which teams I'm leading in the future, I have ground experience for regardless of segments, regions. And that really allows me not to only have credibility, but also have the experience, real life experience, personal experience, not just hearsays, from different people, on how I can guide my future team in whatever obstacles that they're facing. So to me, it's all about gathering as much experience, exposure, before I step into another role. And I think that's really important. Yeah. So you learn from your experience, not just in theory, but you experience it and you teach others and you mentor others. Yeah.
Wow. And maybe tell us more about, since you moved from enterprise to kind of SMB or maybe a little bit of mid-market, depending on how you describe SMB or mid-market, you mentioned velocity. What are some of the other things that you realize? Because for now, I'm in SMB and mid-market AE as well. So I do see that difference as compared to back then when I was prospecting into enterprise accounts. So I realized there's a lot more disqualification, a lot more conversations you need to have.
Exactly.
Something like that. Anything else you would add on your end?
Yeah, I would say, to put it really bluntly, right, you kind of only have one shot to make it happen. because of the pure length of the sales cycle, it's so much shorter. It can be weeks, it can be a month, but not like enterprise accounts that takes about 6 months or even a year, right? For some opportunities. So because of the sheer length of it, you probably have only 1 or 2 shots to nail down your value proposition, to nail down a good demo, to nail down the conversation and the pain points and doing a good disco or a good discovery to understand a business. So you only have 1 or 2 shots to do that. And for that, I think it kind of sharpens my skills in understanding businesses. It sharpens my skills to understanding pain points, to do a more prescriptive demo rather than just a full-on demo to someone. So I think that would be the difference, and of course the velocity, which comes time management, proper territory planning. You're handling not only 20 accounts as like the enterprise rep would, you're handling 500 accounts. So proper territory planning it's crucial. So, but I'm having fun. Don't get me wrong. I'm really having fun in pulling out all that parts of me that I need so much in this role. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have to say I agree with you, especially on the part about time management, which is one you want to disqualify sometimes, right? Because it's like, okay, you know that there's no point to harp on this deal, for example, which you know probably may not happen, this opportunity. And I think it's interesting that you mentioned this whole thing about you only have 1 shot, because I think sometimes people will say, SMB, mid-market AE is very transactional. It's just, it's almost as if, I give you price, do you want it or not? But the moment you say that, okay, it's only 1 shot, which means you must sharpen that discovery call more. You must ask more relevant questions, or rather dive deeper into that call. And I think, there's actually a different perspective that people can start taking on. Like transactional sales or fast cycle sales does not exactly mean no skills needed or just give you an amount and you buy. It actually takes a lot more to make sure you knew that in the first try, which is something I'm also learning at the same time.
Yeah, which I agree, right? You are the first taste of organizations to your solution. So would you want that first taste to be transactional, or would you want it to be a good taste? And that's really the experience that you give people. So most of the time, although it's fast, quick, right? It's the experience that counts, and features and functions kind of battle wouldn't work most of the times. It's all about the experience that someone has, the kind of questions that you ask that comes down to the root of the pain of an organization, and your solution solving that issue. So that's why you got to be sharp, in your questioning, this goal. You got to be sharp in what you're showing, which features are you showing your solution, and what pains and business problems are you solving. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, that is definitely something I am always working on. And probably on my end, we are always learning and working on it, right? But one last question on my end, which is more related to, you mentioned, okay, you were doing ASEAN previously, like Singapore, Malaysia, and other ASEAN countries. Now you're in Australia. I'm just curious, what's the main difference you see? Or just maybe point out a few differences that you see in terms of how you approach someone or how someone talks to you or converse with you.
Yeah. For one, videos are always on. So Australians love to on their videos, and I love that because there is the human-to-human interaction, and you're actually seeing someone, and that changes everything, to be honest. So I turn on my video all the time because it's a culture here as well. But I would say that the market-wise, it's very different because I'm in the HR tech space for employee experience. The kind of conversations that we have about people in general, employee engagement, culture, nuances within an organization, there is a certain level of expectations that is different from the ASEAN market, I would say, based on my experience. So my way of questioning is really different. I ask questions pertaining to their current initiatives, what are they trying to achieve. I'm having conversations regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion. But in general, right, just having conversations, I think that's really different. Yeah, as compared to the ASEAN market, where it probably takes a while to warm up. Big Asians probably. Australians are just right there, right? So I'm enjoying conversations with Australians. Even in my daily life, when I go for coffee, someone can just speak to me about the day. And we just strike a conversation there and then. So it's just a culture shift for me. But that's one part that I'm learning a lot, how to have a proper conversation with someone. And I'm loving that, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I heard from my Australian colleagues, even now in the past, is that, and actually that means it makes discovery easier because you ask a question, you don't have to worry about, is this true, intrusive? Do they trust me enough to tell me something? It's more like they are just there to tell you about it and to share with you. So I assume, they are much more open to share. Would that be the right kind of phrase to describe the shift in culture?
Yeah, as long as you can click with them, you're interested and genuinely interested in what they want to say, yes, they're definitely more open to share. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, maybe one day that is something I should think about, getting that ANZ experience as well. That will be interesting.
Yeah, I'm waiting for you. Yeah. So
we'll see where life takes me and takes all of us. Yeah. But I mean, of course, with that, Shawn, we are coming to the end. But I do have a couple of questions, final few questions that I always ask my guests, right? Sure. I guess, and this is where I want you to just take it, share what you have from your heart, and anything else that you want to share. Based on today's topic, what is one last message you would say to people who, I like to say they are in the SDR lane, whatever SMB, mid-market or enterprise SDR, and maybe they want to go into that AE position. You talk about your experience. Yeah. What is one last message, sentence, or whatever, one last thought that you want to leave with them? Yeah.
Not one, probably two. I think the first thing is to have passion. We know about extrinsic and intrinsic motivations, right? We are all in sales. We don't really have to talk about the extrinsic motivation, which is commissions, finances. That's a given, right? Most of us are in sales because of that. But that is not sustainable. The sustainable side of things is really the intrinsic motivation, which comes with passion. So for me, if you're an SDR wanting to go into an AE role, or rather if you're considering a tech sales role, right, as a start of your career or mid-career change, I think it's important to find a solution that you're passionate about. So for me, it's all about people and data. I love both. So that's why in the company I'm in right now, it's all about people, employee experience. And that's where I find passion in. And every single day I get feedback from different ones, right? That, Shawn, you have energy, you have passion. I get tired most of the times, of course, because I'm on calls every single day, but it's passion that drives me. So it's important to know that you're passionate about a solution that you're selling. That's number one. Number two, it's find a mentor. Find them quickly. It's so important. Mentors are like mirrors in your life. And I'm thankful that I have a mentor in my life. From me, that brought me from Workday all the way to my days in Splunk. And even right now, so find a mentor in your life that it's like a mirror that reflects what you don't see. So your mentors will be able to look at you for not who you are right now, but who you can be. So many times a mentor will look at me and say, Shawn, I think you can do this, but I don't even believe it myself. But because of the faith that my mentor had in me, I began to work towards it. And eventually I began to see that, hey, I can do that. And that actually helped me, to become an enterprise rep. And so two things: passion about the solution you're selling. Find one before you jump into an AE role. Number two, it's finding a mentor and find them quickly.
Yeah. And if I can dive just a little bit deeper into that mentor part, would you then suggest people to find mentor within their own organization? Or, sometimes it could be even fluid. If they happen to meet someone who, of course, they must first be willing to meet someone, right? Go out there and meet different people for coffee. Yeah. But if they happen to meet someone, would you say that is, actually, that's something you can think about as well?
Yeah. I mean, meet anyone from anywhere. So for me, I have a few mentors in the space. I have one really main one that has journeyed with me. We share the same values, the same principles, and therefore she is my consistent mentor, right? But I do have different mentors at different stages of life. It can be industry-based, in the HR space. It can be in the tech space as well. So it can be your hiring manager. It can be someone else within the organization. And I have the privilege, right? I'm really humbled that different ones have been approaching me on LinkedIn to ask for advice, even if they do not know me. So the world is small. We're all connected via technology. Find someone that resonates with you. Speak to them. I believe they won't reject you. And just get on a call. Maybe have a call every month or something like that. Just a short one to check where you're standing, to share your thoughts. Yeah, that's how mentorship happens.
Yeah, and you never know. Maybe after this episode is posted, you may have a few more people coming to you to ask about your experience. So hopefully, maybe yes.
It's my honor. It's my honor. Yeah, it's my honor. Yeah.
Okay, and of course, 2 questions I have is, number 1, what do you love about your job at this moment?
I love my job so much. As you can tell, it's not the country, right? It's not the coffee that's speaking. It's my job. So I get to speak to organizations about people, how they're treating their people, engaging their people. And with engagement comes productivity, and it makes business sense to have engaged employees. But essentially, it's about changing the environment of work for someone, because we're at work most of the time, right? Most of our lives, we are at work. And having a solution that helps you to change that place of work, allowing their voices to be heard, it's such an impactful role that I have. So I'm really enjoying that, to have a greater purpose. So the intrinsic value, the intrinsic part of me drives me and really wants me to do better in my role, and speaking to more companies about that. Yeah.
Nice. And of course, then, in your personal life, for example, what gets you out of bed every day? Work, yes, but what else gets you out of bed every single morning?
My dog gets me out of bed every day. Always gets me up at 7. No, I'm kidding. Okay, I'm kidding. So I know the question. So what gets me out of bed? Is knowing that I can potentially bless someone through a simple conversation. Yeah, and I learned that through my years serving the community in the past 10 years, especially the youth, that a single conversation, a single experience, encounter can change the life of someone. And I long for that every day when I wake up, there may be someone out there that I'll speak throughout the entire day. That certain word or the sentence or conversation that I have may eventually change their lives. And for that is what motivates me to get up every single day. Yeah.
Wow. I respect that. I really love the answer. I think it's a very noble thing. And yeah, thanks for sharing for that. And of course, we are coming to our rapid fire questions. As you may know, Shawn, this is where you just try to answer as quickly as possible. As I tell every guest, the beginning, it may be easy answers, right? But as we go down a little bit more, you may find it gets a little bit deeper, but do your best to come up with whatever that comes off the top of your head.
Okay, I'm ready. Yep.
Okay. Now, so since you're in Australia, you've been visiting it, you've been going different places. What would you say is the best place you've visited in Australia so far?
There was recently a tulip festival, Tusela Tulip Festival. I love that place. Imagine that landscape of different colors of tulips. Beautiful. Yeah, that will be my best.
Okay, next question. What career did you dream of as a kid?
As a kid, policeman. I wanted to be a policeman, like most boys out there. So yeah, I wanted to be a policeman when I was a kid.
Yeah, that's probably the same as me. Okay, but next question. Now, if you can learn any language in a week, so meaning in a week you can master the language, what language would it be?
Spanish. I love to listen to the Spanish Christian songs. It's such a beautiful language, similar to Mandarin, right? Mandarin songs just hits a note, but Spanish songs, the language is just beautiful. So yes, Spanish.
Okay, well, that's something new I learned about you today.
Yeah.
Okay, now next question here is, if you had to give someone a book you've read before, which book would it be?
Wow, it's a really, really deep question. A book. If it's pertaining to sales, right? Spin selling. Spin Selling will be a good book to start with. That will be a good book. It sets your methodology to kickstart your sales career. Yeah, that will be a good start.
Yeah, and that's literally the first book I read about sales, by the way. That was my first ever sales book. Yeah.
Nice.
I second you. I really would recommend that. It just changes your whole idea of sales is not about pitching, it's about asking questions to get information.
Exactly.
Okay, the next one is something a little bit more fun. What is one thing people do that you can't stand? Like a pet peeve, just something people do, irritates you a little bit.
Probably when they eat loudly. Yeah, that's probably one thing. Yeah, when they eat loudly. It doesn't happen a lot actually. So yeah, but that's just one thing that I cannot really stand. It's when you eat loudly.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah.
Now, last two questions, it may be a little bit deep, but the first one is, if you could make one wish come true right now, what would it be?
Well, one wish that I want
right now
to come true.
Can make it true right now. What would it be?
Right now, I want to grow taller.
Oh,
is that too shallow?
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's your answer.
Yeah, I want to grow taller. I mean, my simple fact, I used to play basketball. I always want to grow taller. My wife is really tall, so I want to grow taller. That would be one wish. Definitely one. Yeah.
Nice. And of course, last question. What would you say is one habit that has changed your life?
One habit that's changed. Being consistent. Yeah. So being consistent in your foundations. So listening to different podcasts, re-listening to your calls. Speaking to different people, consistent about speaking to different people to hone your skills in communication, even though you may start really awkwardly. So consistency is key. It's just what you do with that and continuing doing in the little things that you do every single day that eventually helps you get better as a person. Yeah.
Okay. And with that was the end of our rapid fire questions. And of course, Shawn, for our listeners who are tuning in, what is the best way to reach you?
Yeah, reach out to me via LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn every single day because of my role, right? So just ping me, DM me any point of time. It's the Australian time zone, but generally I look at LinkedIn all the way to when Singapore ends the day. So just reach out to me via LinkedIn. I should be able to reply in a day or two.
Yep, and I'll make sure I'll put your LinkedIn profile link in the episode description as well.
Sure.
Yeah, but with that, of course, for all our listeners, we have come to the end of today's podcast with Shawn. For the Revenue Journey podcast. Again, I want to say thank you to everybody for tuning in. Now, if you enjoyed the episode, want to hear more, as always, hit the subscribe button and feel free to connect with both me and Shawn on LinkedIn. And we will always appreciate any feedback, suggestions, or questions you may have for us. But if not, we are always excited for the next one. We are looking forward to it. But for now, take care, stay safe, have a great revenue journey. And Shawn, say bye to our audience.
Okay, bye everyone. See ya.